Chow line. To even get into the chow hall was an ordeal. We would march down the hallways between the barracks, calling cadence all the way. It was one of the few times we would see the other platoons. We would get to the entrance and compete to see which group had the most spirit in calling out the responses. Not only were we competing against other companies of soldiers, but also against the other squad lines. We were always so hungry, and it was such an honor to be the first squad row to go in. It usually meant you got to eat a few more bites before they ushered you out. Once in, the constant orders and watching didn't cease. Orderly and silent, this is the way the chow line had to be every day. We lined up in 3 lines: active duty, reserves, and National Guard. The problem for us active duty personnel was that there were a lot more of us than anyone else. And even though they took one from each line at a time, the other lines finished long before us. When given a limited time in the chow hall, every minute counts. We only needed to remember 2 things in the chow line: your last name and your last 4 digit of your social security number. When it was your turn, you would yell it out and they write it down. Then, when you get to the clipboard, you sign your name. If for some reason they got the number incorrect, just sign it anyways. Don't question it or you will get screamed at. For me, the food was good. It was the first time I'd eaten 3 meals a day in a long time. In fact, I put on 15 pounds in just 9 weeks. Full meals of a main dish, veggies, and potatoes. We were allowed water or fruit punch, even though the soda machines were right there in front of us, taunting us. We only got to use them once, but that's another story. My favorite meal was probably breakfast. I loved the grits, especially with grape jelly mixed in. Chow hall was for eating, not talking, and if they caught you talking, you were done, up and out of there. If you had time to talk, it was over. The worst was being the last in line for chow. You would get in and have very little time to eat before being thrown out for the next platoon of soldiers to come in. The chow hall served way more than just our company. It served the whole battalion, including the female platoons. While they were on the other side of the chow hall, it was the one of the only opportunities to see women. Hey, I was a single guy at the time, but with my head shaved and my huge glasses, I knew no one was looking at me. Some of the women looked downright awful, especially with their messy hair and those army-issued glasses. But on the other hand, some of those women made the BDUs look sexy as hell. But alas, there was no opportunity for talking. In fact, if you looked too long, you got yelled at. The chow line again: don't talk or even laugh, or else. I did get in trouble, big trouble, once in the chow hall. I was in line to sign in, and of course all the reserves and National Guard troops were already in, and it was left to the active duty line. My buddy in front of me cracked a joke. Now, I would never talk in line, I knew better, but it was a funny joke, and I couldn't help but just laugh a little. There were so few moments in basic to smile and have fun. Well, sure enough, Drill Sergeant Smith appeared out of nowhere behind us and whispered in my ear, making me jump. "I want to see you at my door right after chow." Damn! We were caught, and who knew what tortures he had in store for us behind the door. Dinner wasn't very enjoyable that night. I didn't eat as much as I was so worried about what might happen to us. When we made it back to the barracks, I was definitely nervous. My buddy met me there, and we went to the drill sergeant's door. I was afraid to knock. I had seen so many fellow recruits go in that door, and it was never pretty. I knocked, and we were told to enter. I don't think the sergeant remembered why we were there. I told him, and he made us reiterate the rules to him about no talking in line. Then the consequence came. We were told to hold these rubber M16 rifles straight out in front of us with our arms locked out, and not to let them drop. The rifle didn't weigh much, maybe 20 pounds, but if you have ever held something at arm's length for an extended amount of time, you tire quickly. What was funny is that while we were holding our fake rifles up, the drill sergeant proceeded with regular business, making phone calls and chatting with another sergeant about the plan for the next day. It was as if we were just some toys in the corner that didn't really matter. A few times they stopped to yell at us for getting the rifles back up and straight, as we inevitably let them slip down a little closer to the ground as we were getting tired. Finally, after an excruciating 20 minutes or so, we were set free with the promise never again to talk on the chow line. After exiting the room and surviving, I just started laughing. I think my buddy mimicked the drill sergeant or something, but I just broke down in my bed and just started laughing to the point of tears. It wasn't in sadness, but just relief at having survived the torture and realizing again that this wasn't all that bad. I mean, sure, my arms and shoulders burned like hell, and I knew they would be sore the next morning. But in the end, I was stronger mentally and physically and ready for the next challenge they would throw at me. But I did learn something that day. Never laugh at a joke in the chow line again. Fire guard duty. Letter to family. Dear family, well, as usual, I pulled fire guard duty on Saturday night from 1 to 3 a.m., so I have time to do laundry and write a nice long letter. I sincerely hope that I'm not calling home too much, but I really need those 5 to 10 minutes to talk to you all. It really helps me through those long nights. It is strange. I wake up in the middle of the night frequently, and I'm not sure where I am. Also, when people wake me for duty, I'm not sure where I am and usually say something wrong to them. For instance, this morning I said, "It's not my turn. Why are you waking me?" Well, needless to say, after a moment or two, I realized what I was doing and recovered in time to apologize for my error. One of the things you learn quickly in the Army is that they love to put soldiers on guard duty. Even though we are just sleeping in our bunks, they wanted soldiers there protecting, guarding, and staying up when they should be sleeping. A few times a week, I had to pull fire guard duty in the middle of the night. It was a 2-hour shift with a buddy. It was a great time to get your laundry done because it was way too crowded in the evenings and weekends to finish it. As long as one soldier was sitting at the desk, the other one could run and get laundry in. Another way to pass the time was to write letters. I would write so many people and just tell them about the crazy shit I was enduring and counting the days until the end. I loved being able to tell others about how they put us in the dirt again or how they made us lay on our helmet while someone confessed to going to the store without permission. It was fun to write the stories. Generally, about once or twice during the 2-hour duty, the drill sergeant would show up. He would check to make sure you weren't sleeping and remind you to let him know if anything happens. However, one of these duties was different. I was pulling the 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift. Definitely the worst shift because I didn't get to go back to sleep afterwards. Anyway, it was the short Asian drill sergeant who walked through the door, and he looked pissed. He was not one of our regular drill sergeants and was in charge of another platoon. I stood to attention and waited for his instructions. Instead of the usual check in and go, he wanted to inspect the barracks. He walked through, and that is when disaster hit. Normally, a lot of soldiers would leave their BDUs hanging on the side of the bunks. This was just to make it easy to grab. Anyway, he started searching the jackets and found a soldier's wallet. This was a big violation, although I didn't know it at the time. He made me wake the soldier and put the wallet in his locker. Then he found 2 more. He was mad and said it was my job to ensure these things were secured in the lockers. It was part of our guard duty responsibilities. He let me know my buddy and I would be formally written up for our failure. No one had ever reprimanded me for this before. We just got the unlucky draw with this drill sergeant, and it wasn't my fault because the previous guard duty soldiers at Lights Out should have checked this. Well, needless to say, I had to break the news to my buddy when he came back from the laundry room. The next day, I was called into the drill sergeant's office. This was only the second time I'd been in there. There was a formal disciplinary action form that was read to me. I really wanted to argue the case, but knew it was better just to keep my mouth shut. Instead, I felt sick to my stomach, wondering if I'd screwed up enough where I would destroy my career. Would I get dishonorably discharged? I had no idea. I had always followed the rules they had told us about, but this seemed to be a new rule that just appeared out of nowhere, and I was to be the scapegoat for it. I felt angry that I was going to face the brunt of this substitute drill sergeant's decision to search the clothes that hung there every night. I opened my mouth to complain and question what was being done to me, but then I remembered it was all about the mind games, about breaking us down to the point where we do everything right. After that moment, I signed the fucking form. The good news was that the disciplinary form would not carry over past basic training, and my only consequence was a day of hard labor instead of training. However, I learned my lesson and told everyone so they would make sure not to suffer the same consequence. The drill sergeant's gopher. Another duty that we were assigned was to sit with the drill sergeant on overnight duty in the main building office. This duty was worse than Fire Guard 1 because you couldn't do laundry or write letters. However, you did get to learn more about the behind the scenes action of the platoon. One thing I found out that night I had that duty was that the drill sergeants could listen in on the conversations in the barracks. They could hear every word we were saying. I always wondered how they got up there so quickly one day when a white guy was throwing around so many racist statements and a fight was about to occur. It was interesting to hear what they heard, and I knew that I would have to tell my buddies about this so they would be more careful of what they said in the future while cleaning up or on personal time. This duty allowed you to talk to the drill sergeant in a more open way. There was still the hierarchy, but you could ask questions without being yelled at. However, the most important thing we were supposed to do during this duty was memorize our soldier manual. Oh joy! The soldier manual. Why aren't you reading it in your sleep? In the battle dress uniform, BDU, there was a ton of pockets. I mean, you could hold just about everything you need in the shirt and pants pockets. In our right leg pocket, we were required to have a Ziploc bag that they gave us. In that bag were three things. One, your soldier's manual. Two, our military ID with the great shaved head look. And three, a disposable razor. More on the razor in another story. But in this one, let's talk about the manual. The manual was a thick 4 by 3-inch paperback book with probably 500 pages. This book, they told us, contained all that we needed to know to be a soldier and to pass basic training. It went through all the marching commands, basic first aid, all about the M16A1 rifle, how to launch a grenade, rules when addressing an officer, the USMJ, United States Military Justice Code of Conduct, and so much more. We were required to carry the bag with this book at all times. At any time, a drill sergeant could stop you and ask you a question from the book. Get it wrong, and you were doing push-ups. Forget the book, and well, let's just say I knew to have my book with me wherever I went, for fear of the consequences. The book was for our hurry up and wait times, when we were waiting on other soldiers to come to formation, or we were waiting on our turn at training. We were supposed to have the book out and be studying. At first, the drill sergeants were nice about it and would help us with questions. However, as time went by, they would get more and more angry if you didn't get the right answer. What is the maximum range of the M16A1? When is the only time you salute indoors? Who drops the salute first, the officer or the non-commissioned soldier? The questions just went on and on. I never thought I would actually finish reading it or memorize it, but by the end, I had it down. Dry shave. I think one of the things that annoyed me the most about basic training was that they took away my electric razor. I had never used a regular razor in my life, and given the short time we had in the morning to get ready after PT, there was no way I could shave in the morning. This meant I did all my shaving at night. Well, with my dark hair and coarse face, it looked like I had a permanent 5 o'clock shadow. Every morning before chow, we would stand in formation to take attendance and to be inspected. Were all our buttons fastened? Did we have our cap on correctly? Did we have all of our materials for the day? And finally, had we shaved properly? It was inevitable that when they came to me, they would yell. First, it was 20 to 30 push-ups and then dry shave time. Remember that razor in my survival bag? Well, it got a lot of work over those 9 weeks. If only they would have let me use my electric razor, it would have been perfect shave every time. Dry shaving is about as painful as you can imagine, and my thick, coarse hair made it all the more painful as I scraped up and down my face, feeling it catch on spots and start bleeding. After a few minutes, the drill sergeant would come around again and check to see if it was better. Do you like seeing the torture and the blood trickling down my face and neck? Yes, I dry shaved just like you told me to, I thought to myself as the drill sergeant walked by to check again. I wasn't the only one who went through this torture, and we lamented about it a lot during downtimes. PT 0430 in the cold dirt. Every morning, 6 days a week, we had physical training, PT. Wake up at around 0400, and we had to be downstairs in formation for PT by 0430. They told us how to dress. Some days it was the gray army t-shirt, gray cotton shorts, and running shoes. However, as it got colder in South Carolina, we would wear our sweatpants and sweatshirt as well. I loved the PT uniform and would sleep in at night, saving me time in the mornings. It was comfortable and felt almost like being a civilian. PT got harder as time went on, but usually consisted of marching out to the big field where I had made the sandbags in my first week in the Army. We would start with stretches and then exercises and finally a run. Through it all, we had to sound off. For example, we would do 4 count jumping jacks. 1, arms out parallel to the ground and legs apart. 2, arms above your head and legs together. 3, arms out parallel again and legs apart. And 4, arms at your side and legs together. We would have to yell 1 to indicate we had completed one of the 4 count jumping jack, which was actually 2 full jumping jacks. This would continue until the drill sergeant got tired. If we didn't sound off loud enough on the count, it was down to the push-up position and in the dirt. While one sergeant led the exercises from above us on a platform, another one strolled through the lines of soldiers, making sure we were doing all of them. We all quickly learned to cheat a little when the sergeant had passed. There were just too many exercises sometimes, and we were just so tired all the time. After the exercises, it was time for a run. You never knew how far we were going to run. Sometimes it was a short run, maybe 2 to 3 miles, but other times it was longer, maybe 6 miles. Luckily, you started to see the patterns in the runs and could anticipate when we would finish. If they turned up the hill around Victory Tower, you knew it was going to be a long, long run. I actually really liked the runs. I loved yelling to the cadence. Some of the drill sergeants were great singers, and they could bust out a new one that would really get us all revved up. Plus, everyone on the post was doing PT at the same time, so you could hear the other platoons sounding off as well. And as you passed them on the run, responding to the sergeant would keep me going and help me take the time away from the hard exercise, the pain, the loneliness, and the fatigue. I never fell out of a run formation. There were soldiers that would do this almost every time. We would be running up a hill and they would start to slow and walk. The problem was that they were in the middle of the formation and sometimes right in front of you. This could lead to disasters if you weren't paying attention, as you had people on the right, left, in front, or back. There was nowhere to go to get around them. If someone fell out, you just jumped over them and kept going. There was a drill sergeant in the back to pick them up. Some of the regular fallouts didn't make it to graduation, but that is the way it goes. As time went on, the PT training got colder and wetter. By December, it was sometimes miserable out there in the morning as the ground was covered with frost or snow, so doing push-ups or sit-ups got you soaked and muddy. If only PT had ended after basic, but that wasn't meant to be. Craziest electric machine on the planet, or the buffer from hell. My first and longest job before the Army was working at Hardee's restaurant, so I spent countless hours perfecting the art of sweeping and mopping. However, the Army brought with it a new tool, the buffing machine. By regular duty, I would learn some secrets to making the floor shine like glass, but early in the Army, we were lucky to get a dull gleam from time to time. The buffer had a big brush that spins in one direction. The art to its use was making sure that you lean it one way or the other depending on the direction you want to go. Newbies would hold the trigger down and the buffer would head to the right very fast until it slammed into a bunk or a wall locker. Buffing was fun because you could see the difference in the floor when you did it. It gave you a sense of satisfaction that you just didn't get from cleaning toilets. The thing was, though, buffing was the last step on the floor, so while everyone else had put away the other cleaning supplies and were relaxing, the buffer was still working. "Hi, Mom. Can you mail me some used pantyhose?" We were allowed to call home briefly in the evenings if the privilege wasn't taken away that day. I tried not to do this every day as it was expensive. There was a bank of 5 phones on one wall on the bottom floor. We were supposed to only call for 5 minutes and then get back in line. Mom and Dad had given me a calling card to use. It was so nice talking to people back home, even if it was only for a few minutes. It kept me grounded, but it also made it difficult as well, knowing I wasn't going anywhere for a while. However, once on the phone, I made a funny request: used pantyhose. This silenced the call for a minute until I explained how used pantyhose seemed to be the one of the best ways to get a mirrored shine on your boots without a lot of work. The buffing pad included with the boot wax just didn't cut it. Well, after a moment, my mom agreed, and I had my new tool in a week. I shared some of the material with others, as had been shared with me, passing the secret to everyone interested. The goal was a mirrored shine for all, better chance for privileges for the whole platoon. Don't walk on the floors! Inspections from the drill sergeants generally occurred in the evening and after breakfast. If things looked good, you got a little more time to yourself. If not, it was back to work. The biggest problem was that we would come in from PT in the morning covered in mud and dirt and track it all across the floors. An awful mess to clean up. Sometimes it was like dealing with a bunch of children. We would yell down the stairs for everyone to take their shoes off before coming into the barracks. But I can't tell you how many fucking idiots just didn't do this. It was like they didn't give a shit if we got in trouble or not. After a while, a group of us realized that if we just made smaller paths for the bunks, we could have a great floor that always shined in the middle. Maybe this would keep those drill sergeants off our backs on occasion. So one Sunday, with a few hours of free time, we redid the barracks. This meant moving all the locked cabinets and all the bunk beds. Now, in addition to telling the idiots to take off their shoes, we had to yell at them to stay off the center area. Yes, it was a little inconvenient as we now had narrow pathways to travel, but the grin on Drill Sergeant Smith's face the next morning was one to remember. He showed his gold teeth, and this time we didn't care. Letter home. Well, it has been raining all day long, and they basically canceled most of our training for the day. I like these slow days, but actually it just means time slows, and it seems longer until we graduate. Today is Halloween, of course, all of us dressed up like soldiers, so no original costumes. 45 days until we graduate. Phase 1 is over. What's next? Letter to family. Well, today we finished Phase 1 of basic training. This phase involved the basics of being a soldier, i.e. marching, saluting, discipline, and many other things. Phase 2, which is 4 weeks long, involves mostly basic rifle marksmanship and other weaponry. I know this will be the best part of basic. Tomorrow we learn about maps and compasses. Saturday we go into the gas chamber. I'm not looking forward to that. I am making some good friends here. It seems a lot easier to get to know people when you all sleep in the same room. Everyone complains about the food, but personally I love it, even the vegetables. I think maybe I'm gaining a little weight, but I haven't seen a scale, so I'm not sure. This morning we had our PT test again. I did twice as good on what they call correct push-ups with now 25. I only need 32 by the last week to graduate. Also sit-ups, I got 35 and need 42 to pass. And I ran 2 miles in 14:58, which for me is excellent. I was very pleased with myself. I only needed a 15:54 to pass the 2 miles. Oh well, it's lights out. I miss you all. Love, Mike. Wake up! You are late! As I explained before, we were given time in the evenings to polish our boots, make phone calls, not always, get ready for bed, do laundry, and basically relax a little. In the beginning, I thought it was our time and we were alone. Later, after pulling guard duty, I found out that drill sergeants could listen in to everything going on upstairs. Sometimes, though, you were just too tired to even take a shower or do anything. One of the guys in a bunk near me was one of those heavy sleepers. He was always the last up when lights came on and usually the first to sleep. On this certain night, he was already in bed and asleep more than half an hour before lights out. And the thing is, he was out cold. His bunkmate and a few others decided it was prank time. Pranks were risky in the Army. I mean, if the drill sergeants found out, it could mean big trouble. In this one, they decided to tell him it was time to get up. So they all changed into their PT uniforms and someone changed the wall clock. Then they shook him awake. Hey man, you're late. Get up for PT. Come on. He was so dazed and confused. He looked at the clock and started to get ready like an automated robot. Finally, they told him the truth, and we all had a good laugh at his expense. I felt bad, but promised myself that I would never let that happen to me. Sunday newspaper. Letter to family. Dear family, with the exception of church, Sundays are almost too boring. I mean, normally we just sit around and clean the barracks for about an hour, but the day drags, and it's too long. Usually I spend my time reading every article in the paper to make up for a week of lost news. Now I am starting to get tired of the cadence and want to listen to some real music. Of course, this is not possible, and I can't remember any of my songs from back home. They are blocked by cadence. When I'm doing a task, I find myself singing cadence instead of anything else. I guess that is what they want us to be like, to lose our civilian bearing and to become 100% American fighting soldier. Well, I know after 2 days at home I will be back to normal, I hope. I really don't think they have changed me very much. I mean, I'm eating right and looking good, but I don't think I I haven't changed that much as a person. I feel much more mentally strong and ready to complete anything that comes my way. I guess you could say this is all worth it, but I won't. I just wish I had my hair. On Sundays, the drill sergeant seemed to take it easy on us, and a lot of times we had substitutes for our regular drill sergeant. Everyone was given time to attend church if they wanted after breakfast. While I was raised Catholic, after so many religious classes in Catholic school, I wasn't much of a church person anymore. I did go to church a few times as it was one of the only opportunities to truly get away from it all. The best thing about Sundays was that they sold a Sunday paper. I know most people turn to the internet for news now. However, in the late 80s, there was no internet and not even cell phones. It was my best chance to catch up on sports, including my Denver Broncos. Ever since I moved to Colorado in 1974, I hadn't missed a game until now, when there were no TVs anywhere in this facility. To volunteer or not to volunteer? What? Are you fucking crazy? Because Sundays were a day when a lot of soldiers were lying around the barracks, the drill sergeants used to come looking for volunteers. It was critical to remain as hidden and quiet as possible in the hopes that you wouldn't be drafted into the duty. I would usually find a spot between two of the wall cabinets, because you weren't supposed to lay on your bunk, spread out my Sunday paper and just read to my heart's delight. It didn't matter if it was the local news, sports, or even fashion and style page. I would read it cover to cover. Anyway, the volunteering would start by a drill sergeant entering the barracks. "Drill sergeant on the floor!" someone would yell. We would, of course, all have to get up and go to parade rest. Sort of like a relaxed attention until the sergeant called "at ease" and you were free to go back to what you were doing. Sometimes the drill sergeants would come in with a statement. "I am looking for 3 soldiers to volunteer for a mission." Oh shit, I would think. Don't move a muscle. Remain as inconspicuous as possible. Hide between the cabinets and hope they grab an idiot coming out of the latrine or someone making too much noise. There always seemed to be a few suck-ups who would risk volunteering, so I would try and wait it out. Sometimes the assignments were good. I heard from one soldier who got to go off base to help purchase materials and bring them back, or another soldier who had a cleaning assignment, but afterwards they ate at a different chow hall and he was allowed to get soda. However, I heard of many other assignments that ended with the soldiers returning late, covered in dirt and no rewards. There was one time I just got unlucky. I was in the wrong place at the right time. I was downstairs polishing my boots on a Sunday afternoon, and here comes the drill sergeant. "Let's go, you 3. Put your boots back in the barracks and be back down here in 5 minutes." I just knew it wasn't going to be fun. We headed out in a pickup, which was nice to be riding in a normal car for once, instead of the back of a big truck on a wooden bench. We headed to the general's main offices. Our mission was to clean them. This meant vacuuming all the floors, taking out the trash, cleaning the latrines, and organizing papers. Geez, didn't they have a cleaning crew for this? And then I realized the reality of the world around me. Everywhere I looked on post and anywhere I went, there were soldiers working. They didn't hire anyone. They just made the privates do all the work. Well, it wasn't a hard assignment. I lost most of the day cleaning, getting my work inspected, and cleaning some more. I got back just in time for dinner chow. Orange vitamin C cough drops. A few weeks into our basic training adventure, we were given the opportunity to go to the shopette down the street for personal supplies. Usually this meant getting extra shoe polish for our boots, disposable razors, shaving cream, laundry soap, and deodorant. We were told explicitly not to get any candy or any other contraband item from the list. When we arrived at the shopette, We weren't even given the chance to act human, as we were sent in 8 soldiers at a time, and all bags were inspected when we were leaving. Even in a shop like this, we were still watched over like little children. Drill sergeants ready to take us down at a moment's notice. The one thing we were allowed to do was to purchase orange vitamin C drops. While I didn't buy them because I was sick, they tasted almost like candy with a sort of rough taste to them, like a dirty orange. In basic training, when you didn't have candy for weeks on end, you will take any substitute. For me, it was savoring the taste of those vitamin C drops, even if it was just a pale imitation of the real thing. Holding my first M16A1. Dear family, today we took apart the M16A1 rifle. It was awesome. I can't wait until we fire it. Tomorrow we have a 3-mile hike to a first aid training class. Did you know that Fort Jackson is the largest and hardest basic training camp in the country? Just my luck. For the first few weeks of basic, it was all about exercising and marching. So many commands to learn: left face, right face, attention, front leaning rest position, etc. I wasn't sure when it would end or change. However, gradually we added in new training sessions. I will never ever forget the first day we held the M16A1 for the first time. We were marched into a room and we sat on the floor next to the weapon. It is never called a gun. A gun is in your pants, they told us. This was a rifle. The weapon lay upon a white mat with shadows and labels for all the parts. We were taught step by step how to take it apart safely, lay it out on the mat in proper order, clean each part, and put it back together again. As I held the weapon for the first time, I realized the gravity of what I had done. Someday I might have to shoot someone with this. I might have to aim and pull the trigger on an approaching enemy. Could I do that? Would I actually be able to kill another human being? I don't know at that time if I could. The training continued for hours until we had the steps down. I have always been good at following directions, and it made me angry sometimes when idiots wouldn't listen and follow. They would get themselves into trouble, but more importantly, we all suffered. It put the drill sergeants in a bad mood, and they loved to order mass punishment to us at times. Even if it was just one person who was acting stupid, I think I hated that the most about the Army. That one person's stupidity shouldn't make all of us suffer. I know that in reality, one soldier messing up could get the whole platoon killed. But damn it, when they show you how to clear the weapon 10 fucking times, listen up and do the shit right. Letters from home. Dear family, thank you for all the letters of support. I do get lonely sometimes, but usually I'm so busy it keeps my mind off thinking about home. Everything is very interesting, and it's kind of fun learning about being a soldier, but getting up at 4 a.m. is not very fun. At least the food is good. I mean, they use real potatoes for the mashed potatoes, and last night we had Cornish hens for dinner. The thing I don't understand is they serve breaded veal all the time, and this seems to me to be an expensive dish. But of course, I always get something else. Also, I always have salad and vegetables, which is due to the fact that I'm so hungry and I will eat anything. As it turns out, I'm actually learning to like certain vegetables, for instance, green peas, green beans, and corn. I don't really mind them like I used to. Anyway, you can be rest assured that I'm eating right and getting almost enough sleep. I was worried at first about getting letters from home. I had heard rumors that they would make you pay for getting a letter and be punished severely, especially food boxes. And that is the way it was for the first few weeks. You did push-ups to receive any letter. This was worth it. To receive a letter from home was so amazing. We were so news deprived. Beyond the Sunday newspaper, we had no access to information. So letters meant knowledge. I don't remember much about the letters I received, but they helped keep me going. The care packages were the best part. We were allowed to get care packages with food or candy, but it had to be eaten by the end of the night. We were not allowed food in our wall lockers, and while some of us hid things for a few days, we knew that it had to be eaten right away. My mom's chocolate chip cookies were the best. They were a little stale, having traveled all the way from Colorado and through all the different post-mail systems to get to me, but oh, so good. I loved sharing them with others. Stolen candy, sort of, but my guilt. My bunk buddy always got to share in my gifts from home. It was one of those trading things. When he had some, he shared with me. It was late in our training assignment, and I was dying. It had probably been 5 weeks since I had a Coke, and it had been over a week since I got cookies. Remember, there were no desserts at Chow. The only sweets I got were mixing grape jelly in my grits. Well, this night, Green had received a care package with lots of candy, and he had it hidden under his bed covers while he went to take a shower. He told me I could have a few, but to guard them from others. Well, I took a few, and then another bunk buddy asked for one, saying that Green had said he could. I wasn't sure what to do, but gave him one anyway. The problem was I was so hungry for candy I couldn't resist. I ate way more of his candy than I should have, and gave away too much. When he returned, he was shocked by how few were left. I apologized, blaming some people for coming around and taking them, saying they said he could have them. I let him down. From that moment on, I knew that he had lost trust in our friendship. I had ultimately let him down because of my own cravings for the candy. I told him I would give him most of my cookies the next time for my mistake, but it didn't matter. The deed was done. Amazing that something like this could riddle me with guilt for so long, but it is one of my biggest regrets in basic. To let down a fellow soldier like that was inexcusable. Forgive me, Green, wherever you are. Happy Veterans Day, everyone. Dear family, as usual, I pulled an early morning shift of fire guard duty, 2 to 4 a.m. I hope you are enjoying my letters. I try to write and tell you about as much as I can. I guess I write because the more I do, the more it makes me feel like I'm home just telling you all that is going on. Today will be the third day of BRM, Basic Rifle Marksmanship. We get to use live ammunition. Tomorrow we have a parade called the Command Retreat, and Friday is Veterans Day, and we have that off, so we will hopefully get to sit around all day. Right now it is probably just sheer mental power that keeps my body moving. I mean, we get up at 4 a.m. for PT for an hour, then clean the barracks, eat, and start our march to the range by 7:15 a.m. And let me tell you, it is a long march. Then we are all on the go all day and have from 8 to 9 to take a shower, shine our boots, and get ready for bed. Life is very stressful, but for some reason I wanted this. I guess everyone is entitled to a few mistakes. Actually, joining the military was one of the best decisions I ever made. I am proud to be a veteran. Thank a veteran today. They are the ones who volunteer to protect all Americans and keep this country safe and free. It was fun to march in these all-post command parades because it was so patriotic. Although it was probably more interesting to sit in the stands and watch as each company passed by. When we were standing at attention listening to the speeches they had about duty, honor, and country, it was sort of a little bit of a brainwash session, but for me, I already believed in all of this. It was the main reason I joined the Army. Yes, the GI Bill benefits would help in the future. However, I was there now, serving my country, ready to fight for freedom. It was a great moment.